Hello and welcome to Men Behind the Stats. I'm Statman Cam, and if you're new around here, please do subscribe to us. In today's video, we'll be bringing up a debate that's been happening amongst United fans for a long time, but has only been accelerated by De Gea's big blunder in the game against Tottenham at the weekend. We'll be looking at whether Dean Henderson should be replacing David De Gea as Manchester United's number one next season. Obviously, Henderson's out on loan at Sheffield United. He's had his loan extended after the pandemic. So at the end of the season, he should be free to come back to United and possibly displace David De Gea. I want to start off the video with a little historical comparison. I want to look at how we've ended up here from De Gea's 2017-18 brilliant season, winning the Golden Glove and one of the best keepers in the Premier League, if not the whole world at the time. What you can see straight away from this graph, going up the graph on the left-hand axis, in red, you've got the post-shot expected goals minus goals allowed. So what that means is the amount of goals that you'd expect to score from shots that are on target minus the goals that De Gea conceded. So obviously the greater that number is, the better the goalkeeping ability, because the more shots that you'd expect to go in, he's saving. So if you look at 2017-18, there's over 12. So over 12 goals that you expect to go into the net, David De Gea has saved. And you come forward, obviously that's gone down a lot, and you look at 2019-20, the current season, that's negative. He's let in more goals than you would have expected, which is, to be honest, simply unacceptable for a top Premier League goalkeeper. The other line you'll see on the graph, in blue, refers to the post-shot expected goals per shot on target. The reason I've used that is basically as a control. Has he been facing significantly harder shots this season compared to 2 seasons ago? And what you can see from that is no. There's very little variation. There is variation there, but if you look at it on the axis, there's only small numbers in terms of the difference. So clearly, De Gea is performing at a much worse level in terms of shot stopping than he was a couple of years ago, and the quality of shots that he is facing hasn't changed. Now, we're going to look at a comparison between Dean Henderson and David De Gea in terms of their stats for the current season and compare how they've both been performing. We'll look at many different aspects of goalkeeper performance. We'll look at shot stopping, we'll look at their distribution, and we'll look at their command of their penalty area. All three things are vital for a top goalkeeper. First of all, we'll have a quick look at some generic stats. So you've got clean sheet percentage and save percentage. Obviously Henderson tops both of those compared with De Gea, so he's performing better in that respect. But that doesn't really tell us too much about their performance, because with the clean sheet percentage, that's a lot to do with the team in terms of their defensive abilities, and the save percentage can depend quite a bit on the shots. So, to explore the save percentage further, we've got this next graph below of the shot stopping comparison. So at the top we've got the post-shot expected goals minus goals allowed, as we've just seen with De Gea in terms of his historical comparison. So what we can see there is obviously De Gea is negative this season, as we encountered previously, and Dean Henderson has saved almost 8 goals that you would expect to go in. Now that's fantastic, that is phenomenal. That is incredible performance from a goalkeeper. And if you compare that to De Gea, who's, to be honest, that's frankly woeful. Looking below at the post-shot expected goals per shot on target, again as I said, this is a measure of how good the shots against the goalkeeper are, because it's how many you'd expect to go in. And you can see again, there is a little bit of variation, and if anything, Henderson's actually faced harder shots. The difference there is not massive, but Henderson's faced slightly harder shots, but has saved an awful lot more. Clearly, in terms of shot-stopping comparison, Dean Henderson has massively outperformed David De Gea this season. The next thing we're going to look at is the command of penalty area. This is a really important aspect for a top goalkeeper. Look at the likes of Van der Sar, Manuel Neuer, Ederson, Alisson. They're big presences now. Players don't want to get in and around the box because they know that ball's getting punched off their head if there's a cross and the keeper can come for it. They know the keeper's going to be a constant presence from set pieces. So you may have seen this graph on Twitter, and what it shows is for all 20 Premier League teams, along the bottom you've got the average keeper distance from goal. Now this is possession adjusted, so that we're basically just looking when the team doesn't have the ball, because in possession we're not too interested in that here. We're looking at their defensive abilities, their ability to keep the ball out of the net. Going up the graph, we've got the percentage of crosses into the penalty area stopped by the goalkeeper. So this shows how likely the keeper is to come off their line and intercept a cross. Now looking at Nick Pope for Burnley, in the top right corner, he's so far above everyone else. He's massive, he's 6'7", huge frame, you'd expect that. What we're looking at here though, is United and Sheffield United. So those dots are larger. You can see United are amongst the worst in the Premier League for both of those two aspects. De Gea is clearly, as we know, on his line he's a decent technical goalkeeper, but he's not got a very good command of his penalty area. If you compare that with where Sheffield are, Dean Henderson's clearly got a much better command of his penalty area and is more willing to come off his line to claim crosses and to, face strikers. Clearly, that's a big factor in Sheffield's clean sheet record. And if you look at United's vulnerabilities, at the start of the season, United conceded far too many goals from set pieces. And if you look at United's team, De Gea isn't the sort of player who you trust to be coming through a crowd of players and clearing that ball from a set piece. Victor Lindelof likewise. Out of that defence, only Harry Maguire is a particularly dominant aerial presence who's likely to win that first ball. United have a tool team, so probably going to be alright at winning second balls. But if you haven't got someone to win that first ball and get the danger away initially, you're going to struggle. And at the moment, United only have Harry Maguire in that defence and goalkeeper position. Something I've often said is that it's vital for a title-winning team to have at least two of that three triangle of the centre-halves and goalkeeper as dominant aerial presences. United just don't have that at the moment, as we can see from this graph. The next thing I want to take a look at is something really that's vital of the modern goalkeeper. Goalkeepers are expected to build attacks, start from the back, so it's important that the keeper is a good distributor. And obviously with Henderson playing for Sheffield United, who play a different way to Manchester United, maybe not building from the back quite as much, at least in terms of involving the goalkeeper in their play, it's important to look at the distribution stats for Henderson versus David De Gea. Obviously it's a common criticism of Henderson, and we can see straight away that De Gea probably is a better distributor. In terms of his long passes, De Gea has a much higher pass completion rate. There is, however, the caveat there that De Gea has attempted significantly fewer than Dean Henderson, and obviously only makes those long passes most of the time when there's a higher chance of them coming off. Now, with the passes between 5 and 25 yards, which is what's really important in terms of starting attacks from the back, build up by playing those short balls out to your centre-backs or full-backs, there's actually not too much to choose between Henderson and De Gea. What you can see from the numbers I put alongside the bars is the number of passes of that type that they've attempted. So obviously Dean Henderson's attempted a lot fewer passes between 5 and 25 yards, sort of medium distance passes, but that's more down to the way Sheffield United play. Now the fact that he's got a very comparable pass completion rate with De Gea of almost 100% in both cases suggests that Sheffield obviously play fewer passes, but when Henderson plays them out, he's accurate. He doesn't routinely make a mess of those passes, and so there's nothing really to be worried about in that sense. Now, De Gea has never been an Alisson and Ederson, really good with the ball at their feet, or even a Marc-Andre ter Stegen. Fantastic for Barcelona, great with the ball at his feet. De Gea has never been like that. So it's maybe foolish to expect that Henderson would be a bad option for United just because he's not necessarily a distributor. He could more than comfortably achieve the similar levels of pass completion to De Gea in terms of starting attacks from the back, as we can see from his stats here. He's more than capable of doing that, and so considering his all-round game, it's really important that Dean Henderson gets bedded in as soon as possible. It's difficult for a goalkeeper to come into a title-winning team or a team that should be challenging for silverware and expect to not make mistakes, fit in straight away and perform brilliantly. If Dean Henderson can start for United next season, it gives him time to make a couple of mistakes, adjust to the team if he needs to, and by the time United are completely ready to challenge for silverware, when Sancho is hopefully bedded into the squad, hopefully the defence is fixed, the midfield of Pogba and Bruno Fernandes is functioning brilliantly, hopefully then Dean Henderson will be the world-class goalkeeper that he's showing the potential to be. Looking at his post-shot expected goals minus goals allowed statistic, he could match what De Gea did in 2017-18. And that was one of the best seasons for goalkeeper in the Premier League, as far as I can remember. All the stats so far point towards Dean Henderson replacing David De Gea as Manchester United's #1 goalkeeper. And so I'd be very, very surprised if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer didn't make this change at the end of the season. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you've enjoyed it, please do smash the like button, subscribe to us, and do go follow me on Twitter @StatmanCam.